upon a time, there were 4 families who lived in a block of flats near the sea. Middle Sea. On the ground floor, in the most expensive flat, lived the String family. The Strings were rather snobbish and lived in style together in a suite adorned with ornaments, all on the Never Never. In a slightly less expensive flat lived the Percussion family. With bells and cymbals, gongs and drums, they were a happy crowd. But if the honest truth were told, their colours were too bright and bold, and frequently too loud. Up another flight of stairs were the Brass family, and their home, gaudier still and rich in tone, was absolutely stunning. Furnished on a lavish scale with chromium-plated plumbing. Had military connections. And in a much smaller flat at the very top of the house lived the Woodwind family. Their furniture was à la mode, all genuine antique. The dining chairs were Chippendale, but one had got a squeak. Now, the Strings had 2 daughters. The elder girl was rather fat. Her voice was very low. Her feet were firmly on the ground. Her movements often slow. Their younger daughter, Viola, as lovely as a rose, had always been attended by a string of eager beaux. But she had fallen madly in love with a piano. A grand piano. With the most beautiful smile in the whole world. And the music they made together was the music of true romance. Were delighted, and immediately they set about making arrangements for a huge party to announce her engagement. They asked everybody to come, and naturally, the first person they invited was her godmother. They sent a note to the Percussion, a second to the Brass, a third to the Woodwind, and everybody promised to be there, and all 4 families, Strings, Percussion, Brass, and Woodwind, longed for the great day to arrive. Saturday, the 31st of March. Violet's fiancé fiancé intended to bring a very important guest, but nobody could discover who it was going to be. And in any case, they were far too busy with other matters. The day before the party, the phone rang in the Woodwinds' apartment. It was the xylophone. "Oh, what are you going to give us an engagement present?" he asked. "None of us can think of anything suitable." "Well, we can't afford anything too expensive," said the oboe. "Let's call on the brass and find out what they're taking." The brass were busy polishing up their medals. They had thought of giving the happy couple a little brown jug, but that didn't seem quite good enough. The bassoon suggested a grandfather clock. But that seemed a bit old-fashioned. Finally, Frau Glockenspiel suggested, "Why don't we all band together and present the young couple with a beautiful china figure?" Everyone thought this was a splendid idea, and one by one, they all went off to bed to get a good night's rest before the great day. Everyone, that is, except the little piccolo, who was so excited that she hardly slept at all. The next morning, the Stream family were tremendously busy. Viola put up the decorations. Her sister dusted the ornaments. And old Grandad took care of the odd jobs, getting under everybody's feet. When everything was ready, they changed into their party clothes and took a well-earned rest. Meanwhile, the piano had been spending hours getting ready, brushing his teeth and practicing his big white smile in the mirror. At 5 o'clock, the striking clock was striking 5. The time the guests had been invited to arrive. And sure enough, before the final stroke was done, the visitors began arriving one by one. No sooner were they inside the door than the brass, who were always dry, made a run for the bar and began helping themselves to large measures of scotch. And although the others were a little embarrassed, they thought it only polite to join them. And it wasn't long before everybody was beginning to reel a bit. They heard the front door slam. It was the piano, making a late entrance, as usual. And leaning on his arm was the surprise guest of honor, who everyone recognized immediately. It was an old canon. The gentleman who has kindly consented to marry us, announced the piano proudly, and he led the old man to an easy chair in the corner and gave him a large tonic. Frau Glockenspiel stepped forward. "My dear," she said, "we have a present for you." And they presented the little china figure which they had bought. Viola picked it up. "Oh, look, darling," she said to her fiancé. "Isn't it beautiful?" And everybody crowded round to admire the delicate little piece. Everybody, that is, except one, who wasn't happy at all. Dinner was over, and Viola's godmother was playing to the guests while they rested.
"Oh dear, excuse me,"
said Grandfather.
"Must have been something I ate."
"How about a few games?" shouted the brass, who were still reeling from too much scotch. "Oh yes," squeaked the little piccolo, "please. I love games." "All right," agreed the bassoon. "I'll pretend to be somebody else, and you have to guess who I am. Are you ready?" "Ha-ha, that's easy," said the trumpet. "You're me." "Who's this?" muttered the trombone. He was slurring his speech pretty badly, but the strings had no trouble in guessing. "Ha-ha," they said. "Could you by any chance be us?" It was Viola's turn next. "Who am I?" she asked. The piano smiled. "Oh, well, you're me, aren't you, darling?" "Listen, listen," squeaked the flute. "I bet you can't guess who I am." Nobody knew. Still nobody knew. "Engelbert Humperdinck, of course," he giggled. The percussion exploded. "That's not fair! You're cheating," they snorted. "Human voices don't count!" And the flute started crying. "Oh, there," soothed the piano. "Don't cry. We mustn't spoil the party. Let's play a word game. If this is C, what word is this?" B-E-A-D. "Bead," said the brass. "Good," nodded the piano. "And what's this?" C-A-F-E. "Cafe," asked the woodwind. "Yes. And this one is face, and this one is feed, and this one's ace, and this one is deed, age, beg, cage, egg, dad, dead, bad, dead." "What did you say?" wheezed the canon. D-E-A-D? Dead? "I don't think that's a very nice word to use at a party," complained the canon, who was getting a bit crotchety. The bassoon blew his nose, and the trombone coughed. Nobody knew quite what to say, and there was a nasty silence. Then the canon lifted his huge my leader. Well, it was such a childish game, but it was the only one he knew, so they had to agree. They would play through all the flats, and the piano was made leader because he had all the keys. He began with a smile. Are you ready? Yes, said the brass, who was still hanging onto the bar. Right, and off he went. Closely followed by the strings, and the woodwind, the percussion, and the brass, Viola's godmother, and the old gentleman himself. He made them all laugh. He made them all frown. He ran them upstairs. He ran them all down. He took them to E flat, and then into B, and they followed him bravely right into the sea. They stayed in the sea, which came up to their knees, until Viola's godmother started to sneeze. So in order to thaw themselves out from their dip, they found a long cord, and they started to skip. Just as they were getting warm and drying out, they heard a fearful scream, the cymbal crying out, "The cannon's dead!" "What?" they said. "The cannon is dead, strangled by a cord." The piano pushed through the anxious circle on the beach, and there, sure enough, lay the cannon. Wound tightly round his neck was the cord. The cord they had all been skipping with only a moment ago. "How did it happen?" whispered the percussion. "Nobody saw," muttered the horn twins. "Oh, what a terrible accident! Now the wedding will have to be postponed," wailed the strings, and Viola fainted dead away. "Wait," snapped the piano suddenly. "There's nothing accidental about this. Someone has tied this cord deliberately. If we could just find out who did it, perhaps they could untie it. And maybe we'd be able to revive him. I think he's still breathing. Listen. Let's try to remember back to when we were skipping. We were playing Follow My Leader, so whoever was last with the cannon must have twisted the cord." "Yes," said the woodwind. "Everything was going smoothly. We were getting on fine. And the last person with the cannon," said the clarinet, "was Viola's sister. She's the one who twisted the cord." "Where is she?" stuttered the xylophone. They all turned to look for her. She was nowhere to be found. The cannon's breathing was getting so faint that it could hardly be heard. Suddenly, they heard a sound. It was the big girl, sobbing behind a sand dune. "Yes," she cried out in a tremulous voice. "I tied the cord. I didn't want Viola to marry before me. I'm older than her. And I work much harder than she does. I'm so plain. And she's so beautiful. Look at her. 20, 14, 22. And look at me, 37, 28, 44. It isn't fair. It isn't fair. Nobody wants to marry me. Shyly, the drum waddled forward and put his arm round her big waist. I've always loved you, he confessed, but I've no money, just 1 or 2 notes. Not really enough to support a wife, but I'll marry you if you'll have me. Said the piano, if only you can revive the canon, we could have a double wedding in the spring. Everyone held their breath. Viola's sister tried to untie the cord. Once, twice, 3 times. But she just couldn't do it. Well, there's only one way, said the piano. We must all help. We'll pull the cord until it breaks. Ready? Steady? Pull! And they pulled this way and that, and the cord began to give and give until suddenly it broke into little bits. The cannon began to get stronger and stronger until he was quite his old self once again. Of course, the double wedding was a very grand affair indeed, but that's another story.